Clubhouse today. I must have updated an app or something like that. So
Good morning. Good morning. We are live.
we're live and in the house. We got Tom Langan and Brian P. Swift up here right now. So
There we go.
let's do, Brian. Me and Tom were just talking about burnout. How do you avoid burnout?
Well,
Can you?
you know, I know a lot of people say try to recognize the signs before it happens. I know for me, it just seems to hit. Like I don't show signs. It's like at least I don't think I do. And I've asked people around me, and it just for me, it just kind of hits where I don't know if it's overload. All of a sudden you don't have the bandwidth to be thinking about all the things you want to do, including life, including other things. So I think it's difficult. For me, it's kind of having a plan on how to deal with it once it comes. For others, it might be try to recognize it before it comes. Through balance of everything we do in life. So I think it's different, but I think knowing yourself and knowing what you have to do to either avoid it or to get out of it is the key. I'm complete.
That's a good point, Brian. Having a plan, knowing that burnout is going to come. So what kind of plan would that be? Like knowing, let's say athletically, Tom, you could answer that athletically, the burnout in the Ironman, the burnout's coming at this point in business every year. It's fall, back to school. Is there burnout in the holiday season into the year? So how do we schedule that or avoid it, gentlemen? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think a big part of dealing with it is just knowing that it's going to happen, right? Expecting it. I think when people are sort of caught off guard, when you go into something a little bit overconfident, or a little overly, just overconfident, maybe cocky, whatever word you want to use to describe it. When you go into a situation with sort of overinflated self-confidence, you get caught off guard by burnout, right? You get caught off guard by exhaustion. You get caught off guard by a lot of things because you're not expecting them, right? And then, so I think the secret to dealing with burnout is knowing that it's going to happen at some point, right? Not knowing exactly when it's going to happen because you can't. We're not clairvoyant, but you can expect it. And I think to take the Ironman example, right? Because obviously that's something I have personal experience with. Endurance, athletic pursuits more broadly. But in the case of an Ironman, a full distance Ironman, 140.6 miles, sometime during the course of that day, you are going to feel like you're out of gas, right? You're going to feel burnt out. You're going to feel like you've run out of steam. You've run out of energy. You've hit the wall, so to speak, right? Or as endurance athletes call it, bonking, right? You've bonked, right? And the reality is that in most cases, you actually haven't, right? You just feel that way in the moment. And the key to dealing with that is actually just continuing to put one foot in front of the other, or just continuing to turn the pedals on the bike, or just hopefully it doesn't happen to you on the swim. Because if you feel like you've run out of gas on the swim, you got a lot of problems ahead of you. It's going to be a very difficult day. But it's just for that moment, just going through the motions and keep moving forward. And your only goal is to keep moving forward. And slowly but surely you will get past that place, right? But I think expecting that burnout is going to happen is sort of the key to dealing with it when it inevitably does rear its head. That's my thought. What do you think, Dom?
You remind me of in David Goggins' book "Don't Hurt Me." It reminds me. I think that's the title. Don't Hurt Me. He talks about this. The Marines have this belief. It's the 40% rule, and it's basically your mind will quit before your body actually will. So at 40%, you will think, I'm done, I'm exhausted, I can't go any farther. But you still have 60% more in the tank, in the reserve. And so think about that with anything we got going on. That how many times when you're put like Brian, when you're writing books and podcasting and doing all these things that you're doing, are you thinking, I'm maxed out here? Some days when I pick up shifts, do some work with Netflix and Paramount and stuff. So I'll pick up shifts and I'm driving around cars and doing all this cool stuff. And then about 10 hours in on the day, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Right? I'm thinking, what? But with the goals and visions and things like that, I think, well, this is part of the process. Hour 10, you got to get to hour 12. So I definitely think that your mind will quit before your body does, and we each have more in the tank. Tom's shaking his head; he's got more in the tank.
Oh yeah, that is 100% true. In my experience, that your mind will try to trick you, right? Because part of it is, from a certain standpoint, it's a survival mechanism, right? You don't necessarily want to, in an uncertain environment, you don't want to go to 100% exhaustion, right? You want to always save something, right? Keep a little something in reserve just in case if you're in an uncertain environment. But when you're in a controlled environment, it's okay to burn all the way through, right? So, from an evolutionary perspective, it makes a lot of sense that your brain sort of tricks you and says, hey, we should stop this now, right? Because evolutionarily, for most of human history, we have lived in very uncertain conditions, right? Where there was likely danger around the corner or something difficult to overcome around the corner. We no longer live, most of us, right? At least I don't, and you don't, Dom, and most of the people in this room don't live in those kind of circumstances where we have to worry about whether or not some animal might jump out and try to come after us, right? Like that's not a realistic concern for most of us these days. So you can push past that, right? When you're doing like a marathon or an Ironman or a mile swim or something like that, where there are safety procedures in place, right? You can push through that reserve, right? And actually burn all the way through it. And so your mind will try to trick you and will say, hey, we should probably stop now. That's all we got. That's all we got for now. We're going to stop, right? And you have to know that that's a trick and that you've actually got more left in the tank. So that Marine 40% rule is very accurate from personal experience. I can attest to that from conversations I've had with, Becky, my partner, who's also an endurance athlete, and other people I know in that space. It's 100% true, that 40% rule. Your mind will always try to trick you that you've given everything you can give. And when you hit that point where your mind says, that's it, we're out, we got to stop, just keep moving. That's all you got to do is just one foot in front of the other, just keep moving forward, and you will get past that point.
Thank you, Tom. Let's keep this moving. Clubhouse, podcasting, publishing, and social media. We do this every Wednesday. We got a club. Jump on in. Swift, what did you want to add to that? I know you're a man of persistence in all things. So what advice you got to keep going on your projects? You got a project and you're at this standstill or you're doing something. How do we get through?
Well, and just to go back, I agree with Tom to a point, but I don't think most people really learn to push themselves to the end, because I think in today's times most people have never had to, and that's why I have this philosophy of self-imposed discomfort, which anybody who does marathoning and is very athletic pushes themselves to, because unless you intentionally push yourself to this self-imposed discomfort, maybe level of braking that you think, you really never know where the gas tank ends. And I think you've got to intentionally push yourself to find out really how much grit you have. And as far as, in today's environment, I mean, I think we're just human nature's wired fight or flight, right? I mean, who wants to? I mean, just think about it. The thought of running 26 miles. Well, most people are going to talk themselves out of it before they come up with something rational to tell themselves why to do it, because it's fight or flight, right? We all, so many of us take the path of least resistance. That is human nature. And I'm not saying it's the wrong thing. I'm just saying most people don't put themselves in that position to do what Tom does, or I've done some triathlons, sprint triathlons to do that. So I think it's something you have to learn to do through experience. So I'm complete.
Thank you, Swifty. Hey, I see Tom. If you can figure it out, I see Julie has her hand up. I tried to invite her. Jess, we got to get you up here. Simon, you're welcome anytime, my friend. Anybody ever that wants to come up on stage, if you want to talk, if you want to ask a question, if you want to talk about media, if you have a question, we got podcasters, we got publishers, we have writers, we have media influencers. So whatever you want to talk about, we'll go down that way. We were talking about fatigue because whether it's back to school, whether it's summer burnout, whether it's this sore throat that I have today, maybe there's fatigue. So that was something that came up and how to overcome that kind of thing. Dean, what do you got, my friend?
Oh, I don't have a whole lot. I was switching back and forth, which I know Tom figured that out. But anyway, you were talking about burnout, fatigue, and pushing yourself through, and I'm agreeing with. You called him Swifty, but it says Brian here, so I'm assuming Swifty's his nickname. Anyway, and this is my personal opinion. Um, when we started getting out participation trophies to anybody that showed up, that was the first mistake. Um, I began my career in a telemarketing room with 200 people, and we had what they call bulls. And these guys would walk through the room and basically, tell you get on the damn phone, you can't make any money, they won't call you, that kind of stuff. A lot of people burned out because of the repetition of the work. Um, I actually found enjoyment in that, and I found enjoyment in doing not marathons, but testing myself physically, testing myself mentally, and it's an endorphin rush, and that's what sales are. When you're a master salesman or a good salesman, you get an endorphin rush when the customer says yes. What I have found over my life is that my moral compass, if you want to call it that. Um, I sold things for so long that I knew people would never use, but I had to make a living and I had to put food on the table. Well, my whole outlook on that has changed. I won't sell anything that won't sell itself or that I believe in. Uh, it causes me less quote unquote burning. Uh, my goal today is to be happy as I know how to be. And I'm grateful for rooms like this, but just like Tom and his marathon stuff, 5 years ago, I was a product of a botched surgery that became completely paralyzed. Now, I walked 8 miles yesterday. I can't walk today because it's raining here in Texas, but man, I'm better now than I ever was. So a lot of times, you know, burnout is I don't know, that, I don't like that term. I, it's almost like giving up. But I know it's real, and I'm not denying that it's real. But it's all about you just don't give up. You put one foot in front of the other, just like Tom was saying. You push through it because every time you do, it gets easier the next time. But you don't know that if you give up. So just don't give up. Push through. Things aren't as bad as you think they are because your mind tells you they're horrible and they're terrible. They're not. If you're living and breathing, you woke up this morning, you got it pretty damn good. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I appreciate this platform to express that. Thanks.
Hey, Dean, man, you're always welcome. We appreciate you, buddy. We do this room every Wednesday. Clubhouse, podcasting, publishing, and social media. Those are all things that we talk about. Some that were on my list today were pivoting, monetizing, avoiding burnout, fatigue. So, Joyce, our cannabis expert, anything you want to add to the conversation? The floor is yours. Go on.
Good morning. I just figured I'd add a little female voice to this. I'm not even going to talk about cannabis, I guess I could. But my husband and I have been married for 30 years, and we decided we were going to do a bike trip to celebrate the fact that we stayed together this long. And we've been training for a 300-mile bike riding race. So I've been pushing myself. So this idea that you're talking to that, there's lots of days when I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I like to hear people who have sort of been out there and done it and kind of keep moving through their mindset, which, I do in business all the time. And as a mother, I must say, we just keep going. And I know we talk about the caregiving, mothers have to take care of others. And I love that you were talking about taking care of yourself. So that's great. But, sometimes just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And you have to kind of find that space in between. But, I like the encouragement. Maybe I'll come back. I'm going in 2 weeks. So encourage me to keep going on my trip. Because I think it's going to be hard, but really exciting. I'm Joyce. I'm complete.
Well, you better post lots of pictures, and we talk about documenting a lot. So you better post lots of pictures. We want to see I've never been to Greece. I'd like to see those rolling hills and beautiful shores. And architecture. Joyce, send it our way. Okay, we got Julie, media. What kind of tips you want to share with us? We're talking about fatigue. I'm trying to talk about monetizing. If you want to talk about that, teach us that. Go on. Julie, what do you got for us?
Wow, sorry, I just had to step away for 1 second to say goodbye to my husband. But, I like what Dean said. Something spoke to me about the trophies. Because, every kid gets a trophy now, so there's no sense of accomplishment. And a lot's being lost. So burnout is a real thing. The problem comes when you stay in that space of burnout and you acquiesce and often give up. So, if you are feeling burnt out, it's time to reassess, like, what is it that you really want to do? Because burnout usually happens when there's no passion or purpose behind it. And with purpose, with passion in what you're doing, you can handle all the no's, you can handle the long nights, but you have to always take care of yourself first. So, I can probably add some more, and I'm sorry I just had to walk away because I was saying goodbye to my husband. So thank you, everybody.
Julie, you're always welcome, and I will let everybody know Julie got a new profile picture there, Tom.
I see that.
It was voted in.
What does that mean? I know it was voted in. What does that mean?
People are like, use your old picture. It's so much better.
Who voted on this?
I don't even remember. It was a while ago.
Let's see.
So I'm just bowing to powering the peer pressure, I guess. So do you guys like the blue one better? I'm happy to put that back up. I don't know, but it's hard. I feel I didn't want to change it because when you see a new picture, you don't recognize the person either. You're like looking in the audience and you don't see them because they have a new profile picture.
Does anybody have any feedback on that? Go on, Tom. What do you got for us?
Cutting edge.
I think it's a good picture. I think ultimately, as long as you're happy with the picture, that's probably the most important thing, right? But I know what you're talking about in terms of, changing the picture. I've never changed mine. My picture has always been this as long as I've been on this app. It's my headshot. It's the headshot I have. So maybe it'll get updated at some point in the future, but for right now, it's just going to stay the way it is. So,
I didn't see Tom without his hat. I literally would not recognize you. And I was thinking one day you have to do like the reveal without your hat on because the public wants to know.
The reveal is that I'm just bald.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And
rock that bald head.
Oh, well, and the thing is I started losing my hair when I was like 17. So, I'm very comfortable with being bald. I don't wear the hat to cover up my baldness. The hat is more about branding than anything else, and it's sort of become a thing, and everybody associates me with the hat now. So I've kind of painted myself into a corner, and I always have to have the hat on. But yeah, so that's the big reveal. Is there's no interesting hairstyle. It's just a bald head.
Well, one day you're gonna. I mean, I think you could use that really with your branding, just like because everybody knows Tom with his hat, and then you get a little sneak peek underneath the hat, and you're gonna just wow everybody.
There you go. Well, all anybody has to do if you want to see me without the hat on, if you look me up on social media, if you find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, and dig back through my pictures and my profiles there, you'll find images of me without a hat on. So it's not a secret. It's just that this is how everybody kind of has known me for the last few years. I started wearing the hat when I started Talex Media about 3.5 years ago. So everybody that's known me since I started Talex Media knows me with the hat, but everybody that's known me for longer, has.
Like Tim McGraw, do you know him?
I mean, I know who he is. I don't know what that has to do with the hat.
Well, because he always wears his cowboy hat.
Gotcha.
And I'm not like, but the thing is, this is my last question. If you're going to a black tie affair or wedding, do you wear the hat?
See, okay, so this is an interesting question. So I went to a kind of a relatively fancy event. I was actually presenting a couple of awards at an event. This is a few years back. And I showed up in a suit without the hat, and people didn't recognize me. And people told me afterwards, like, you should have had your hat on, because a bunch of people didn't. It was at a business. It was through a business association, the awards that I was presenting, and so people didn't recognize me without my hat on. People did double takes and all that kind of stuff. And then in terms of a wedding, I haven't actually. It's been a bit since I've been to a wedding. It's been a few years. The last wedding I went to, I definitely did not wear the hat. But interestingly, Becky, my partner, and I are getting married. We decided, sort of in honor of our 10-year anniversary, we should actually get married. And so we're getting married in the spring, and I haven't really thought about wearing the hat, whether or not I'd wear the hat. Probably not during the ceremony, at least. I feel like that would probably be inappropriate, but maybe later.
Yeah, we need to get Becky on here someday.
Oh, she'll probably say whatever you want to do is fine. Yeah, we're both very sort of like low maintenance when it comes, and honestly, the genuine reason why we've been together for 10 years but have not gotten married yet is because neither one of us really wanted to deal with planning a wedding. So that's that's really all it comes down to. But and I don't think Becky's going to join in this. She does not like to be in the spotlight and does not want to be on a live stream, I guarantee you. So yeah, it's hard enough to get her to sit there, to get her to Zoom with people that we know, let alone to do a live stream in front of the whole internet. That's the likelihood of that happening is slim to none.
Tom, I hear that. My wife is the same way with being out in the world. She thinks it's completely nuts. Even talking to strangers at the grocery store and stuff like that. I met this guy the other day. He was in Korea. My grandfather was in Korea. I had to talk to him. Why wouldn't I? And I found out that Korea had cold weather up north and it was warm down south. I had to talk to the guy. My wife thinks that's weird. All right, we need to talk to more people. Now we can talk about showing up and how you look when you show up too. And we're arrived at somebody who always looks lovely and outstanding when she shows up. That is Jess. So Jess, you hear we're talking about all things media here. So ask a question, give a tip, tell us about showing up and looking good. Showing up, you don't wear a hat. So go on, Jess. The floor is yours.
Good morning, y'all. That was a really good question, Jules. I like that. I actually had that question too.
Thank you.
That's
Oh, that's what you're going to say.
And that's what No, that's our inside joke. Well, first, I just want to say, always thank you to Dom and Tom for this space. Sorry I haven't been here, generally here all the time. It's just been so crazy. But I was like, well, I'm packing, so right now is a good time. I can join in. For me, I mean, I do want to say it's not always about me. So if anyone doesn't know, I do want to congratulate Jules. She, is a contributing writer. If she did not say it, because she's so humble. And her article was posted. So it's on LinkedIn. If you're friends with her on LinkedIn, you can see that. Or Facebook. And I just want to tell her how proud I am of her and all she's doing. As far as me, I did change my profile picture. Apparently, it was voted in also. I do just exactly what it is. Brand media. I mean, from podcasting to PR to media relations to extensive research. But the biggest thing is, I guess, just driving with your passion and your purpose. So I call 2022 the year of change. And the reason I call it the year of change is because that's exactly what's happening with me, personal, professional, but I'm still here and I'm still pushing forward and I'm excited for all good things that come. I just encourage everyone to, as they said way back when Clubhouse started, look to your left, look to your right, look up, look down. You're really surrounded by a lot of genuinely smart and humble and great people in this room. And that's one thing I will always be able to say. Um, and I'm just here to help. I'm here to offer, any advice or anything. This is the Dom and Tom show, as Jules would call it. I'll land my plane.
Jess, Tom will admit, and I will definitely admit, that we are just riding coattails of great people like you and Julie and Brian and Dr. Tachi and Joyce, and so we're appreciative. And Tom, I bet you did not know this. I had a call with Jess the other day through Instagram because I'm creepy and call people through Instagram. I'm probably I think the quality of the phone call is so good. You can see I call people in Dubai sometimes and it's clear as can be. But I had a call with Jess and she completely inspired me. I was having a rough day with a client and she basically kicked me in the butt and said, get your ass in gear and go out and kill it, and everything worked out. So thanks, Jess.
I didn't even know you could call people on Instagram.
That's a little creepy, Don. You're right. Like you never expect someone to just call you randomly.
So I do it on Facebook and I do it on Instagram because a lot of times I'll be connected with somebody like Jess. I don't know if I ever called you like that, Julie, but you don't have their phone number, and so you can actually call them. I did it with a cousin of mine who our dads are brothers, and he lost his dad, and I wanted to talk to him. So I just kept calling through Facebook one day until we finally picked up the phone. He's like, I've never seen this, didn't know what it was, and we had the most beautiful call through Facebook. But the Instagram quality of the phone call is even better. So you go into the DMs and you can actually call, and the clarity is just amazing. So that's my advertisement for them. Jess, go on.
That is agree. No, I will agree. So no, I mean it was great. I mean he was having a rough time and I was too, and I guess we equally poured into each other, and the day went great. So you could see who it is that's obviously calling you if you want to answer, and I knew who it was. So I was like, oh okay. So you can answer that way. You can either audio call or video call.
Go on, Julie. She started to say something. What was it, Julie? We were anxious. First,
I was saying, just were like, oh, this is weird, but I'll answer it. It's Dom. And I was going to say, let's all call Dom today on Instagram just to kind of
figure it out. I'm telling you, call somebody on Instagram. I talked to David Campbell the other day. Him and his wife on Instagram up in Canada. I don't have his number. I don't even know how you call somebody in Canada with the radio phone. Is it normal? I don't know. I just push a button on Instagram.
What's that?
There you go. I have that too. Okay, we're moving on. Enough of this nonsense. Dr. Tachi, straighten us out. I was watching your show this morning. That's how I get motivated. That's how I prepare to do better shows in rooms. I watch Dr. Tachi. So, what do you got going on, Dr. Tachi? Share a tip with us. Contribute however you want.
Good morning, everyone. Well, I'm glad that I am able to motivate you in the morning, Dominic. I need to motivate myself sometimes, so I'm glad I'm doing that for someone else. So I hope everyone is having a great day. There are two things that I wanted to add. In terms of, when I came in, someone was talking about um, rest or taking a break or something to that extent. So I wanted to add to that in terms of when you're creating content, for example, you have a podcast, you have a live stream, you have some kind of content, it's okay to take a break, time for yourself. So do it in seasons. So if we look at traditional linear Hollywood and the way they do things, they don't keep going forever and ever, amen. They take a break. They do things in seasons. So you can decide how long you want your seasons to be, and you can do that and say, okay, we're taking a break, but we'll be back X, Y, Z. And those of you that have an audience, they will understand the reason, especially if you've been consistent for a long period of time. Consistent every week, every day, whatever the thing is, just take a break. You can take a break by taking seasons, and that way you built in rest into your schedule with your content. So again, there are some nuances to that. If you are creating content for a brand and you have a lot of brand deals, you may not have an opportunity to take a break, but you may have an opportunity to take a break between campaigns. So just say, okay, I'm not going to take any any campaigns for like 2 weeks or whatever, and take the break then. So build breaks into your content creation schedule. And speaking of that, and brand partnerships and sponsorships, it got me thinking when we're talking about how you show up and how you look. It got me thinking about there's so many people that I've seen. I watch a lot of YouTube, sometimes more than regular television, which is ironic. And there are a lot of people that do a lot of fashion influencers, and they have these brand deals with all these different stores. But you can tell they're not necessarily comfortable in the clothing that they're wearing, and it's not them. And in my head, I'm like, that is ugly. And it doesn't matter what I think necessarily, but what does matter is this, that this goes for anything. If it's not something you use or can get behind or believe in or even know really anything about, why would you partner up with them? Because you don't know. If it's not in terms of how you look, if that's not your style of clothing, like I was looking at something this morning and it's like there's an opportunity for a brand partnership, I was like, I would never because I don't wear those types of clothes. That's not me. And maybe it is somebody else, but it's not me. So that's another thing to chew on as well. And I released the mic.
Dr. Tachi was dropping it, wasn't she, Tom? She comes,
As always.
Conquered, right. I mean, it's so many things there to how you show up. I wanted to ask Dr. Tachi, though, when you're doing the seasons, would you run reruns like of a podcast or something like that, or what would you do?
Yeah, so this is the thing. If it's a podcast, now this is a great example because if it's a podcast, then you can actually really take a break and maybe do a short little episodes in between if you want, if you felt, or you could just say, yeah, we're on break now, but we'll be back with fresh new episodes on XYZ. And then you could do it that way. You don't have to do it at all. Now, if you're like me and you have a show, or a lot of us here have a show on radio, maybe you don't have the opportunity to take a break like that, in which case you should definitely build into your schedule, okay, I need a break. So I need to tell them on these certain weeks, we'll do a replay so that you can take a break. So that's how I would do it. And that's how I do it now.
I would just tack on to that too. I think like a lot of people are afraid of taking breaks, and a lot of people are afraid of sort of creating seasons for their podcast or their content or whatever, and rebroadcasting old shows. But again, I'm going to say that, and I know I've said this, 100 times in the past in this room. I've said it over and over and over again, but I'll say it one more time. It may not be new to everyone, but it's new to someone. So when you rebroadcast an episode of your show or your podcast, whatever the case may be, your live stream, whatever, it's going to be new to somebody, right? Not everyone that follows you, not everyone that likes your content sees it every time you release it, right? So just understand, be confident in the fact that it will be new to someone and that you're not going to alienate every single person who's ever subscribed to your channels or your content from continuing to follow you if you re-air something. We're all very much used to reruns, so don't be afraid of it for those reasons. And the other thing that it can do for you is by setting a clear schedule. I'm a big fan of like consistency over time and setting a schedule and setting expectations for your audience or your community and then delivering on those expectations, right? Because over time it builds trust. So setting a schedule where you say, hey, over the next 3 weeks, we're going to do rebroadcasts. We're taking a little bit of a break, but we're going to be back with brand new episodes of the series or the podcast or the show or the live stream in 3 weeks or in 4 weeks or whatever the case may be. It helps build anticipation for that show, right? For that content that you're putting out. So don't be afraid to use it as a tool to build anticipation, right? To get people excited about the new season, to tease the new season, to talk about some new things you have coming up or changes you might make or something like that. But then also be confident in the fact that when you rerun content, no one's going to run for the hills or give you grief for rebroadcasting something. Everyone in this room, everyone who subscribes to your podcast, everyone who watches your live streams or watches your video podcast, your video episodes of your show, all of them, every single one of them has seen a rerun before, and it has never turned them off of their favorite show. So it's not going to do that for you. So don't be afraid of it. Reruns are A-okay. And remember, it will be new to someone. It won't be new to everyone, but it'll be new to someone. And that is worth something too. So don't disregard that.
Could I just add one more
Please,
thing?
Dr.
Of course.
Yes, as an add-on to that, sometimes you don't always have to take a full break where you're just quitting cold turkey. Maybe you have something else that you can post. So, for example, if I'm taking a break from media scope, what I'll say is like, there's no media scope today, but guess what? I have an episode of Be More Her that's going up, so enjoy that. So maybe you have other things that you're doing as well that you can put up. Maybe it's a post about where you are or something like that. So you can think about, you don't have to take a complete break if you don't want to. You can always post something something else that they can enjoy.
Love it. I always think of how many people we're meeting every day too, every week. So think about a project you worked on a year ago, 2 years ago, a video you made. You've met so many over the pandemic. We joined Clubhouse and now we're in these rooms. I wonder how many things that each of us did before the pandemic that all of us don't know the others did. And you could reshare that kind of content. And then as far as episodes, when like I do this show called Bikes and Hikes, I believe every week when we put out the TV show Bikes and Hikes that I should put out episodes of previous episodes before that one comes out. Hey, have you ever seen this one? Before new one's coming out tomorrow, check out old one. Check out this. I think it's just basic arithmetic that I should put out a previous one going into the new one so that people can see here's what's going on and maybe they check it out as well. Okay, let's go to Cynthia. Let's see. I don't know. Paranormal suspense author. I want to write about paranormal suspense. Cynthia, go on.
Thank you for inviting me up. I just wanted to add about the burnout. As an author, I write probably 3 to 4 hours a day. And I find that about every 3 months, I just don't want to do it anymore. Or in the middle of a conversation with my characters, they quit talking to me. And I find that getting away from the keyboard and handwriting triggers the flow again. So if you're podcasting, how would you re-trigger for more innovative ideas? And thank you.
Great question. Julie, Dr. Tachi, Brian, you want to answer that for our podcasters out there?
Hey, Cynthia, can you ask the question one more time?
Okay, as an author, when I burn out, I get away from the keyboard and I start using the other side of my brain by handwriting. And then creative ideas start flowing again. So as a podcaster, how can I make that switch?
Do you have a podcast, Cynthia?
I do.
You're doing a lot of creative things. This is the thing. And what I've noticed as, I'll put this in air quotes, author, but I do love writing. You know, when I am just depleted, it is taking a step away and finding resources to pour into yourself. Instead of giving, you need to receive, whether it's a YouTube channel or a room like this on Clubhouse or a community of like-minded individuals where you don't have to be giving. You can just sit and listen, go for a walk, get grounded, get outside, and come back to it when you feel inspired. Because I know when we're creatives, it's a slippery slope, and we can be really hard on ourselves, and we just want to pump out the content, we want to pump out the podcast episodes, and then the energy is not there. And I've noticed just when my energy is not there, it's not received with the energy that I want it to. And people are very aware, even intuitively, of the energies that other people are giving out. So it's almost a fruitless pursuit when you just are pumping out content just to pump out content. So I know for myself, like, I need to be inspired, and it's not worth doing if you are feeling lackluster or uninspired, because that's the message, that's the underlying energy you're going to be giving out. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
I wanted to tack on there to what Julie was just saying too, because I think, as a creative myself, who's involved in a bunch of, creative pursuits on a daily basis, I think one of the things that's most underrated by a lot of folks is going for a walk. Going for a walk is incredibly good in a whole host of different ways. For me, and I think for a lot of other people, it has this potential as well. So going for a walk for me does a couple of things. One, it takes me away from the space where I was stuck, right? So if I'm sitting at my desk working on a project and I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling like I'm having trouble coming up with a creative solution to a problem, I find removing myself from that, physically from that space, from that situation, helps, right? So it does that. It takes me away from the space where the problem is, right? Or where I encountered the problem. It also gets me away from screens, right? Because when I'm out walking, if I'm walking outside, I'm not looking at a screen, I'm not consuming something, I'm not reading or whatever. It gets me away from screens where I'm looking around, I'm taking in what's going on around me. I'm a little bit more present in the moment, right? And that helps. The third thing that it lets me do is clear my mind, right? So I can choose to listen to something. So I can listen to music. I can listen, which I sometimes like to do to just have a little bit of background noise, or And I use headphones that don't actually go into my ear. They're bone conducting headphones that just sit in front of my ear, so they don't actually block the sound of cars or nature or things like that going on around me. So that's something to look into as well. So you can have music, but it doesn't necessarily block out everything that's going on around you. So that's good, especially if you're walking on a road. You want to be able to hear if there are cars coming, just, one of those things. And so you can listen to music, you can listen to a podcast, but you can get away from being in front of a screen, right? Because we all spend a lot of time in front of computer screens on a daily basis. So getting away from being in front of a screen. And then the last thing is that it provides, in addition to all these sort of mental benefits, for me, the other thing is the physical benefit, right? Obviously, going for a walk is good for you. And if you go out and walk at a brisk pace for an hour or for half an hour, it's going to have physiological benefits too. And you're going to get a little bit of an endorphin release from doing that even moderate cardiovascular exercise. And that endorphin release is going to make you feel better, right? So you're going to come back having left with a problem. You're going to come back feeling better, energized, and ready to tackle that problem head on one more time. So I think going for a walk is an incredibly underrated form of exercise and form of mental health support that I think a lot of people don't use, but just getting out and separating yourself from everything for a little bit and getting a little bit of physical activity in you can be incredibly beneficial. So yeah, I just wanted to echo what Julie was talking about getting out for a walk. I think it can be a game changer.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for this question, Cynthia. Yeah, Brian, I saw you flash off. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I try to go in if I get stuck like that, whether it be trying to come up with podcast content or writing, I try to go in the opposite direction. So kind of like Tom said, I try to do something physical, whether that's a walk or lifting weights or hitting a heavy bag. And then I try to look at content that's opposite or different than what I'm traditionally used to writing. So I usually am in the motivational, inspirational genre, and I break off of that, and I've been trying to write comedy, just something different, just something to totally get away from what you usually do, and I find that also helps. I'm complete.
Brian, I love that idea of switching from what you usually do in like the reading and stuff like that. I might go read classics like Red Badge of Courage or Gatsby or something like that to switch from I'm in a motivational, inspirational space, and sometimes I'll move over and study those kind of books as well. But for my writers out there, one thing I wanted to add is you can always go back in if you're in that writer's block mode. You can always go back into something you've already written, something that you believe was good, reread it and add detail. It is always beneficial to go back in and add detail to the story, meaning I always want you to take me to that moment, make me feel what you felt, make you see what you said. I think Tom was talking about that last week on like missing the fact that sometimes we know the story so well that we don't necessarily tell the whole story, and it's a good way to go back in and make sure you don't forget those kind of details. So, all right, let's go here. Clubhouse, podcasting, publishing, social media. Anybody, if I missed you down there, raise your hand, whatever. Hey, my friend from, what do you say, Albuquerque or Las Cruces? Las Cruces. Moose, that's where my mom's from. Okay, let's see. We got Charlie Cifarelli. Charlie, what's up, my friend? Give us some advice. Teach us.
I don't know. I don't give advice. I just give suggestions. I don't want to get anybody resentments.
Well, you got a new website launching, so and I saw you're giving no dieting advice on the new website.
No. I just heading out to a podcast right now in New Jersey, keeping busy, and just doing what I got to do. I try to always make a neat appearance. I live a disciplined life, which you know, Dominick, we talked about it a lot. I look good in clothes, and I look good in beach attire, so I'm good anyway.
There we
Mic
go.
drop. That's a
Yeah,
mic
there we
drop.
go. Yeah, I look good. F you all. There you go. All right. Well, what did we learn today? I have no idea. In show. Tom, bring us back. I'm lost here, man.
No. That's yeah. Charlie's always good for dropping a bomb like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Charlie's always got something good to add. I think, he says he doesn't give advice, but he's always got some good stories and some good information to share. And what I was saying last week, Dom, was yeah, we often, just to circle back to what you were saying just before we went to Charlie, is what I said last week was, because we know a story well, we often forget to give the context to the audience, to help them fully understand the story, right? The things that we know, we forget to relay all the sort of important information that builds out the story so that it makes sense. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I had nothing else to add on what Charlie said. Like Julie said. Go ahead, Julie. Oh, did we lose Julie? What happened? You there? Oh, there you are. Yeah, we can hear you. We got you. Go ahead.
Julie, bring it on, Julie. Bring it on.
Really good. Well, I mean, it's going back to the beginner's mind and remembering, what it's like to be a beginner learner. Not everybody's where we're at, wherever that is. And so many people do forget, okay, so you're learning how to write a book. And Dom, the expert, or make a video. It's going back to the very beginning and kind of harnessing that beginner's mind. I think it's so important as well. Okay.
Thank you, Julie. I was just reading down below. It's Hoot said he took, what's it say, in the 10 million steps a year? Did you see that in the in the comments? Hold on, I'm going to try to read this. This is high tech for me. Well, we're live streaming, so anybody that
You can do it.
Sometimes people are like, "Oh, you didn't call me up on stage," or "You called me too fast." We're live streaming. We're looking at the people on the stage. We're trying to read the comments, and we also read DMs. So I apologize. I'm limited in my skill, but okay. So here we go. I'm going to the comments here. Who? I've had 1 point. Okay, he says walked 5 to 10 miles a day for years. 10 million steps over the last 2 years. Oh my goodness! I wonder how many steps a day that is. Lots of great ideas formulated during those walks. There you go, Tom. He's agreeing with you. Okay, let's keep going here. Joyce says she's re-release shows this summer. She took a 4-month. I took a summer off, and she's launching her new season today. Good, congratulations. Share it. Jess says, "Welcome, Joel." She's proud of her. That's nice. Support you. Lauren Sexton says, "Justice of the peace. No wedding planning necessary." Just saying.
So I have. Here's the thing: is part of it is our really for our families, right? Like the wedding is for our families. It's more for our families and our friends than it is for us. The actual, the party, and that's actually how we're referring to it as. But Becky and me, I'm not speaking out of turn there. We're both referring to it as a party, because that's really what it is. We want to do it while our parents are all still around, and we can kind of get everybody together in one room. But in terms of, we're not doing a religious ceremony because neither one of us is very religious. So we're not doing a religious ceremony. And the wedding is going to be a civil ceremony that will be conducted by my dad, who's a retired judge, and has the authority vested by the state to perform wedding ceremonies. So my dad is actually going to be the one who actually marries us, at the wedding. So there is, that was one of the things too, is while my dad's still around and he can still do it, you kind of have to take advantage of that opportunity as well. So there were a bunch of reasons, but the big reason why we haven't done it this far is because neither one of us really wanted to deal with like the whole rigmarole of it, even though we're doing a scaled down sort of like our version of a wedding. We're actually doing it at a we think anyway, we haven't 100% committed to the venue yet, but we're doing it at this place near us that's a state park, and they have a building with a merry-go-round in it that you can rent out for events. And so our plan right now is to do the wedding in the merry-go-round house at the park, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool space, and you get to ride the merry-go-round, like they turn it on for you and all that stuff. So we'll get everybody on the merry-go-round and all that good stuff.
Now that's the good info we needed to know. Merry-go-round wedding. We continue Clubhouse, podcasting, publishing, and social media. We started a club. We do this room every week. You never know. It's organic. You never know where this conversation is going to go, to how people wear their hat. Dr. Tachi rocks a hat, and she's on brand. Charlie just dropped that he looks good, and it is what it is. So, what do you say? He looks good on the beach. Looks good on the beach, and
With clothes.
Oh, yeah. Just, yeah. See, I'm rattled after that. Okay. Let's meet Andrea. Andrea, what do you got going on? Ask a question, share a tip. Go on.
Greetings, all. Always happy to be in your space. I saw the title, and the first thing that came to mind is my struggle with getting my podcast onto social media clips. I don't know how many of you are using YouTube Shorts for your podcast, but I was just curious, how are you editing your audio and making that work?
Julie, take it away. I can take it away. Okay. So, Andrea, there are so many ways you can do it for free on Audacity. I love the script, the ESCRIPT, and then you can edit the audio, you can edit the video, and you can get the transcripts downloaded. Or you can get the episode transcribed. So you have a lot of different options. I always use a lot of different things, but I can use Canva or VSDC. I'm happy to chat with you quickly if you have questions, because I know it's confusing. But think about the attention span of people that are watching these videos, and just take up the best part of the conversation or your episode and hit that out of the ballpark with a lot of graphics and something at attention. Because unfortunately, it's about beating out the white noise. Beating out the white noise that everybody else is doing it. Everybody else has a YouTube channel. But beating out the white noise. So, but I do love the script, Canva, and VSDC. Audacity is great for editing audio. There you go.
Have you guys tried YouTube clips? What do you think about it? It shows up.
Yeah.
You mess with it. So you use YouTube clip. It's very easy to clip your stuff, and you can clip somebody else's stuff. But the thumbnail picture remains the clip of the whole interview. So anybody have thoughts on that?
I haven't utilized it. Does it work for you, Dom?
It's really easy to use, but all I'm saying is, I think the thumbnail picture remains the inner, and then it does lead them into the full video, which is cool about it. But I think the thumbnail picture remains. I should research that, because maybe you could switch the thumbnail picture.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, are you using YouTube Clip in the Creator Studio or from your phone or your laptop?
See, that's more advanced than I am, Andrea.
It's too technical.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Why? What do you give us? Why? What do you got?
Well, I'm asking you that because when I go through YouTube on certain phones, like if you go on an old Android, right? Let's say like a Samsung, the shorts, you're not able to do that from your phone. You can only do a post or upload a video. But if you use a more updated phone, an Android, a more modern one, or an iPhone, you're able to do shorts, posts, and video uploads from your phone. Now, on your laptop, it's a whole different thing. Once again, you can upload a video, you can post, and you can do shorts. So I haven't seen clips there, and that's what made me ask, are you going into the YouTube Creator Studio to do for those advanced features, because I haven't seen them just on the basic.
I think I'm doing it just right from the video. So
Okay, good. I will look for it.
Yeah, you can go. Can you go onto any video and you can just clip it? It's like just clipping a sound bite because they're trying to keep up with Reels and TikTok and getting those short sound bites.
no,
Short form, right?
does the video go? Now I can share it on different platforms. I get that. I can share the video on blah blah blah. If I share the video, how can I get it on to stay on my YouTube channel? That's what I want. Other videos to be shown on my YouTube channel. Anybody have that answer for me?
Can you download it? I don't know if you can.
I don't think that's a thing.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say you want to be careful with that because someone used like a short that I did on their video, and I actually received a copyright claim, and I was like, wait, I didn't use anyone's material, but it was giving me the option to file a copyright claim against that individual. That I could contact them directly and request that they take it down, or I could file a claim against them. So I think you want to be careful with that.
That's why I was wondering where the clips go, because if I clip somebody else's content, which you're allowed to do, and it shows my thumbnail picture up in the corner, yeah, I don't. Where does that go? Like, does it go on my channel as well? I don't know. So that's where I'm torn. But why I was asking about other people's content. So when I go out and I host Bikes and Hikes, after it airs on the cable company first, Armstrong. If anybody's got Armstrong in any state you're in, look up Bikes and Hikes. I have a show on it on your Omni channel or whatever you can find it. But then they take those shows, they air it on YouTube, and I would like to take a show that I'm in and put it on my own YouTube channel. So that's why I was asking.
I think it's just a link, right? When you clip it.
Yeah, that's how I've seen it.
I think, as far as I know, the only way to do that would be to get permission from them, and then for them to send you a file so that you can upload it, on your YouTube channel. I don't think you can it's not like a Facebook page where you share. You can't if you share something to your channel, you can't share to your channel somebody else's video. Right. So I think the only way to do it would be to get permission from them and then have them send you a file and then you upload it to your channel.
Okay. Now we're going to something else interesting here, which all you guys should know about, and I want to learn more about it. So Brian says he's a POW expert. Brian Strubhar, that's how I would pronounce it. Business coach, strategist, relationship coach, author, speaker, investor, founder of masterminds, clubs. Okay. So Brian, welcome. You feel free to ask a question, share a tip, but we want to know about OWL too. I'm hearing about this. We know producer Jimmy is a fan and promotes it, but just trying to learn a little more. So you mind teaching? Dang. That's what happens. You put people on the spot and ask them to teach. So Brian, if you get a chance, come back. We want to know about the OWL app. So when we talk about monetizing, there's this app OWL. You can schedule time as an expert, and then let them know what times a day you're available and take calls during that time. So I think it would be something that a lot of people should check out. Tom, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I am on it. I think you have to get approved as an expert, which I've done, because I think I remember when it was producer Jemmy introduced me to it, and when I first joined the platform, I had to go through a process and fill out a bunch of questions and sort of essentially lay out my bona fides, right, to claim that I was an expert. And then they decided whether or not to approve me as an expert. But I've never really it's one of those things, I sort of never think of it on a regular basis. Maybe I should set some time aside in my calendar on a weekly basis where I spend, a couple of hours here or there just making myself available. on the app, because as anybody who's been in this room before, and as you well know, Dom, I love talking about what I do because I love what I do. So I'm always happy to share that my experience and my insight with folks. More broadly. So yeah, it's something I should definitely look into using, but I haven't really taken advantage of it. And every once in a while, it was a couple of times I've gotten a request for a call, but it's always been at a time when I was like in a meeting and I couldn't do it. There were, for whatever reason it was, they've always come at times when there was no way I could make myself available. So I just didn't. But yeah, it's something that I should probably actually follow up on. It's the curse of a sort of a creative brain, right? Is I have a lot of things that are half started and a lot of great ideas that I just don't have enough time to follow through on. For what it is, it is what it is.
The curse of the creative brain. I like that. So what do we do, guys in this room, guys and gals, when we have these creative ideas, when you have 50 ideas, 100 ideas, 20 ideas, are star ideas, but you can't handle them all. You can't do them all at one time. What's the best way? I want to move them all forward. I'm passionate about all 50 of them. Give me some advice. I need you.
I mean, I know for me, I have to pick, right? If I try to move forward on every idea that I have on a daily basis, I would literally never get anything done. All I would do, my whole life would be starting things and never finishing them. So yeah, so I think I have to pick something. And then the other thing too is putting myself on a schedule and holding myself accountable to it. Right. So that's one of the things that I do, with my athletics and my training. It's one of the things that I do with my calendar. If you look at my work calendar, it's laid out every day. I have certain times set aside to do certain things. It's the only way to sort of, for me, to get some of those things done. And that's not to say that schedule, doesn't have flexibility built into it either, right? Like my training schedule, for example, I'm not always able to do all the training every day that I want to or have on the schedule, right? Sometimes I have to make allowances for life and things get in the way and you have to adjust, right? And the same thing is true for my daily calendar schedule. I don't always go to bed when it says sleep time. I don't always get up when it says wake up. I don't always have lunch exactly when it says have lunch, right? When my lunchtime is set aside on my calendar. It is what it is. But having that framework at least gives me something to operate inside of, right? It gives me a space to operate in rather than just sort of operating, willy nilly. And I, if I let myself do that, I will get pulled in 100 different, I will pull myself in 100 different directions at once. And I will do little bits of 100 different things and never actually accomplish any of them. So that's just how my brain works. And that's what works best for me. But I think it's a very individual thing. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, but yeah, I think it's a very individual pursuit, figuring out what works best for you.
I go on, Dr. Tachi. I always love to find out how people are scheduling their creativity, scheduling their work, their posting. So please, Dr. Tachi, fill us in.
I have to agree. All we have to do is not to talk about people, but all we have to do is look at Facebook. Every 5 minutes, they come up with something new, a new feature. Usually, the antecedent is a competitor is doing it, so we have to do it too. So they have 50 million things, not necessarily 50 million of their own ideas, but 50 million things that they want to do, but they don't do any one thing particularly well. And I think that's what we have to be careful of, where we have a lot of things, but we don't do any one thing particularly well. And that doesn't mean stick to one thing. That means get to know one thing intimately and do it very well before you start adding other things in. Maybe some people can do several things at once, but I tend to have many projects on the table at once as well. But what I do know is that I have become very good at a couple of things, and then once I know I'm solid in those, I can add new things in. So for me, that's what works.
Good wisdom, Dr. Touch. Appreciate it. What do they call? They say jack of all trades, master of none. Sometimes when you spread yourself too thin, you can. You spread yourself too thin, you can suck at a lot of things. Well, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't want.
See,
Go on, Andrea.
disagree.
Go on, Andrea. Please, let's hear.
I'm sitting here laughing, thinking, okay, I'm guilty. I am that person that is just the opposite. I feel like it's such a Western concept that you have to stick to this one thing and be good at it. You know, what if you're good at a whole lot of things and you can get all those things done?
Okay,
You know,
tell us more.
yeah, I mean, I remember being in the West, working, you know, as an attorney, working as an investigator, and having to choose my job over the things that I really enjoy doing. So when I decided to move to the continent, it's just the opposite. I designed jewelry here. I just designed the 2 pairs of leather shoes I just got back as samples. I design clothes. I run a restaurant. I have a boutique. I'm like. So I'm always like, how do I allot my time better? But it never stops me from doing all the things I want to do. The way my brain works is that when I'm working on a project and I feel like I've exhausted myself enough, I have to put it down and move on to the next project. So everybody's different, but I don't ever feel like you should have to limit yourself. If that's how your mind works, that I need to focus on this, then move to the next project, that's fine. My mind doesn't work like that. All of these different ideas come, and I'm like, I have a book, I journal everything. When I sit down, I work on those projects. That does not even include podcasting, the YouTube channel, my radio show. You know, when do I find time to meditate is my big thing. But outside of that, I'm doing it all. This life is too short to be scheduling my time out and not doing all I'm capable of doing. I relinquish the mic.
Can I add to that really quickly? Andrea, I 100% agree, and I think everybody is different. So I'm Nigerian. My parents are from Nigeria, and I spent donkey's amount of time in Nigeria and on the continent myself. So from watching and understanding and knowing, you're absolutely correct. You're right. That there are many people who take on a lot of things. I will add this though. Sometimes when I watch some people, this is not everyone, when I watch some people who do a lot of things, there's nothing in particular that stands out about one thing. There doesn't have to be that anything stands out. But I am saying that it's difficult to divide yourself up in different avenues. Now that doesn't mean you can't, but I bet that you probably didn't. Maybe you started doing two things at one time, and that's fine. But you probably didn't start doing everything you're doing at the same time and master, and I hate that term, but become proficient in it all at the same time. It's in stages, right? So I do agree with you. We're all different. We can all, I mean, I do 10 million things. But for me, and because I'm different, I know I can take this on, but not right now because I want to make sure this is up and running and off the ground, and then I'm going to do that. And some people can do things all at once, but I do notice, from the African perspective, that, and I've seen, because my mother is one of these people. She does a lot of things, and then she'll want to add something, and then I'm like, okay, well, what happened to X, Y, Z? And whatever she does well. But then when she adds something else because she gets excited, I notice, okay, what happened to, aren't you still making X, Y, Z? I noticed that, and I've noticed that with a lot of family members. So I'm not saying that's an African trait, but the tendency to want to do a lot of things from what I've seen, just looking at family members, sometimes ends up in certain things falling by the wayside. And maybe that's just natural progression. But I just wanted to add to that. I released the mic.
I just wanted to jump in here too and just clarify a little bit of what I was saying, right? And what I mean by that is I like Dr. Tachi, I do a lot of different things, right? So I'm not going to sit here and laundry list out all the things that I have going on, but I have a bunch of different things, kind of a bunch of different balls in the air that I'm constantly juggling, right? And my point was that the way that I keep those balls in the air and I don't drop them is by providing framework and some regimentation to my life and some structure to my life, because my tendency, my sort of natural desire, is to just keep picking up balls and throwing them up in the air, right? Because I get really excited at the idea of starting new things, and new ideas really excite me, right? So I get really excited about that, and I want to grab all the balls I can get my hands on and throw them up in the air. But the flip side of that is that I know that there is no way that I can keep an infinite number of balls up in the air. I can't juggle an infinite number of balls. There is a finite number that I am capable of handling. And if I go beyond that number, I'm going to start dropping things, right? And that's what I want to avoid. And that's why I provide myself with that structure and that regimentation to limit how many things I take on at once, so that I don't follow through on that sort of instant gratification side, that excitement that I get when I see a new idea or I really like a new idea that I want to just grab it and throw it up in the air. I have to pump the brakes on myself so that I don't have too many balls in the air at one time, because, I'm a decent juggler, but I'm not real good. And there's no way that I could juggle an infinite number of balls. I can't take on an infinite number of projects, even though I would really like to start an infinite number of projects. I have to limit myself. And the way I limit myself is by providing structure for myself, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to do it for me. Right. I'm an adult. I'm a business owner. I feel like a child in my head. I'm definitely like in my early 20s in my head, which is probably why I do a bunch of the crazy stuff that I do. But I absolutely have to provide myself some structure, because no one's going to do it for me. So I just wanted to clarify, kind of, that's what I was talking about. I wasn't saying I only do one thing at a time. I'm saying I have to focus on one particular thing at certain times during the day, so that I can make sure that I keep, as I wrap up every day, that all the balls that I've thrown up in the air are still being juggled and they're not being dropped. Right. So that was my point, but I wanted to clarify that for everyone.
Back to, I want to ask you a question. I hate when I say I want to ask a question, just ask the question. Do you have projects, people in this room, do you have projects that you are moving forward, but you don't necessarily work on every day? Is that allowed? Okay, so this is okay. So let's say if I got 50 and I think I'm working on the 50, some I might jump on and look at twice a week, or I might think about it more once a week. Maybe it's been 2 weeks I send an email, and that is okay. I haven't spread too thin. Is that I just want to.
I mean, not all things. Sorry, go ahead.
Andrew,
No, Tom, I'll make it quick. Yeah, I'll make it quick. I just wanted to say, I think the other thing I should have added, there's a little caveat here, right? I had all of these ideas sort of in a book about things that I wanted to do, and I really just had to come to the continent and find people. I partnered with people to carry these ideas out. So I'm not actually doing them on my own. I design jewelry, I take them to a silversmith, he gets the jewelry done. Now I'm responsible for the marketing and that sort of thing. So I think I should have made that clear. I'm not working on them alone. I have collaborated and partnered with people. So I guess that's a little different.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. And that's a good way, again, to kind of keep a bunch of different balls up in the air, right? Is rather than, trying to become proficient as a silversmith to make the jewelry you want to make, go partner with somebody who's already got that skill set, right? Design the jewelry, partner with somebody who's got that skill set, and then your execution is going to come a lot faster. And then you can handle, kind of where you can handle things where your genius is, where your skill set is, on the marketing and sales side, if that's the case. So yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. And thank you for the clarification. To what you were asking, Dom, not all projects need attention every day. right? Sometimes, let's continue with my juggling analogy, or my juggling metaphor, right? If you're juggling, like, you don't always throw, not every ball is thrown the same height, right? So you might have some balls that, need a touch every day, right? So those you don't throw very high, and every day you have to put a hand on them and just give them a touch and toss them back up in the air and make sure they're still good. Some, you only need to touch, once a week, right? And so those you touch, you chuck it back up in the air as high as it'll go, right? And then next week you come back, and as it comes back down, you grab it, and chuck it back up again, right? You touch it again one more time next week. So I think, not all projects require daily touches or daily input. Some things, I have projects. I literally over the weekend heard from a client whose project has been in kind of stasis since February. Right. And they finally reached back out and said, okay, I've got a bunch of stuff. And we had touched base a few times over the course of the year since February, just to make sure that everything was okay and we were going to continue pressing forward. And did we need to revisit the contract and amend things or change things or what? But yeah, it just heard from them, and they want to jump back in where we left off. Right. So that's that. I haven't, I've had a handful of touches on that project over the last 6 months, 7 months. Right. And now we're kind of going to get started going back into it. We're probably going to email every other day, and then, and be in sort of relatively constant run out. So it really just depends on kind of what stage you are and what exactly the project is, how often you need to interact on it. I think it really is, just depends.
Fair. I'm interested in this subject because a lot of the work that I do is completing a project so that it's done when something else happens later on. If I complete this, finish writing this, or then so later on when I finish this other project, I'll have both of these done because it becomes more marketable. And so a lot of it is, well, I haven't touched the thing I wrote, Growing Up Gangster, a screenplay about high school in the 90s. Well, I wrote that because I needed to have a whole library of screenplays for when something else happened. So, but as far as moving that forward, am I guilty because I haven't on a daily basis been saying, hey, everybody, with a megaphone, well, da 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 da. That wasn't what it was about. So that's why I'm perplexed, and I love the conversation. Okay, let's meet our friend Jane. We've met Jane before. Jane, I'm going to read this because she's doing good work. She helps veterans get benefits. She's an educator, volunteer, no cost. U.S. Army Reserve, retired. Thank you for your service. Jane, have at it. Ask a question, share a tip, or give us your thoughts. Go on.
Hi. Well, you pretty much gave me a good lead in there with the fact that I'm veteran focused and widow focused. In the chat, I left some information about the fact that only 50% of our veterans and less than 25% of our widows receive their benefits. So, but I came in the conversation because I'm enjoying this dialogue about project work and things like that. And I think project training is a real good thing for most people, and finding the right tools as far as programs and everything else that are out there. But in the military, our leadership courses at the academy, we always had to look at it more as a delegation process. Delegating what to be delegated, who to delegate it to, what timeline to give them, and then having those come back together and meet and say, okay, did we meet this timeline? Are we ready for the next step? What do we need to do to adjust prior so that the mission is met, and that type of stuff. So I think there's a lot of tools out there that people can use, especially if they're just starting into project management, that they should be looking into. Your thoughts? Thank you.
I'd love to know what kind of tools, Jane, just to give us some a little more, take us down that path a little more. What kind of tools could they be using?
Well, there's different software programs and such out there where you can actually plot out, chart out. Okay, we used to reverse engineer. Okay, the ultimate goal is to take that hill. What do we need to take that hill? And then it would give you all the assets that you need. You start listing the assets that you have, the things you're going to need, how you're going to get those things, who's going to be responsible for those things. And then, of course, the different parts of the mission itself. Okay, there's all the logistics stuff as far as getting supplies moved, who's assigned to that part of it, who's assigned and what tools are you going to need as far as, okay, we need 25 tanks. Okay, well, do you have 25 tanks? And if not, where are you going to get the others? Do you have 25 tanks, but only 20 of them are working? Okay, who's going to be responsible for getting those other 5 online? And I'm not as familiar with the civilian software, but I know it's out there because I saw it as a civilian before I became a veterans advocate. And so I've seen them. I don't know the names of the software, but it raises questions to you that you hadn't thought about. So I found in the military those tools were really good for me in getting me to think about the things that will catch you in the end. Thanks.
Inspiring stuff, inspiring work you're doing, and that thought of taking the hill is what I'm leaving my clubhouse today with, the thought of taking the hill. And I'm reminded of this Tony Robbins story when he talks about if you want to take the island, you got to burn the boats. And so I will leave that, the wrap up today for me is, all of us are out there. We're creatives. We're thinking about going for it. We're in the process of going for it. We have our doubts. We have our regrets. Go for it. Take the shot. This is your moment. You have what it takes. Absolutely go for it. It'll be far greater the results than you ever thought you could achieve. So don't wait another moment. Take the shot. Burn the boats. Tom, that's all I got, my friend. So do us up. Take us home. I know you wanted to circle back to something. So go on, my friend.
Yeah, man. So you know how I'm a big proponent of researching and understanding and really sort of digging a little bit deeper into sort of the psychology of things and how things work and why they work. I was that annoying kid my whole childhood when an adult would say to me, "Do it this way," my response would always be "Why?" And then they would say, in my parents' cases, sometimes they would say, "Because I said so." And I would say, "But why?" Right? I always want to know why. Right? It's probably part of why I ended up doing what I do, and it definitely explains my approach to how I do what I do. But it's because I always ask that question, why? And so we had a couple of folks, Dean and Julie, in the room earlier today. Both had sort of made Dean started talking about participation trophies, and then Julie had kind of echoed his sentiment that they were, terrible, essentially. And I was curious. It got me curious that idea that participation trophies are inherently bad has always kind of, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. And I never really dug into it. So they both said it today, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to do a quick couple of seconds of Google research. And wouldn't you know that participation trophies and the story behind participation trophies is not what you think it is. So participation trophies have been around for 100 years. 100 years. They're not new. They're not something that started with this generation or the last generation or the generation before that. They've been around for at least 5 or 6 generations. They go back to the 1920s, to the sort of advent of youth sports in America. And interesting fact there, youth sports in America came about right around the time that child labor was outlawed. And that was because all of a sudden kids, when they were in school, needed something to do in the afternoon because they weren't allowed to go to work anymore because we decided that child labor was a bad thing. So out of that sprang youth sports. And in order to encourage children to participate in this new idea of youth sports, they started giving out participation trophies. right? So they started rewarding people for participating in something positive or good, right? And so all you had to do was show up, and you got a trophy at the end of the season for being a part of that team. And the idea behind it was to encourage teamwork and to encourage people working together. So fast forward to the 90s, which is when people started kind of turning on participation trophies. And the earliest mention of participation trophies that people could find was in a local paper in, I believe, Wisconsin in the 1990s, where a softball coach said, "We've gotten enough participation trophies. We want to win a title trophy." So basically, wasn't saying anything bad about participation trophies inherently or necessarily. He was saying, we get those every year. It's great, it's fine, but what we really want is the title. We want to win the title, right? So wasn't saying anything bad about participation trophies necessarily, but it was taken that way. And if you follow that that path, you end up, here we are 30 years later, right? In 2022, talking about how participation trophies have ruined a generation. And my question is, which generation, right? Because there's like 6 generations. The greatest generation, the generation that fought in World War II, a lot of them got participation trophies. I don't think it ruined that generation. And so I would argue it probably didn't ruin any generation. It's just that public sentiment has kind of turned against participation trophies for whatever reason. But the winds change over time. It's just the way the world works. And whenever somebody says something like that to you, that's sort of an easy way to blame something for a curtain. I'm combining words. An easy way to blame something for current circumstances, right? Like participation trophies are to blame for people's lack of work ethic, right? Is a common thing. Like, oh, nobody wants to work for anything. They all got participation trophies when they were kids, and now they don't want to work hard for anything. Well, that's a convenient excuse, and it's an easy thing to blame. And whenever you hear one of those things, I want to encourage you to take out your phone, right, or get on your computer. We all have the collective knowledge of all of humankind at our fingertips. Do a little research, dig into it. If it sounds too easy, if it sounds too good to be true, it often is, right? And so I just want to leave everybody with that. Never, never, never shy away from digging a little deeper. Things are very seldom as simple as they seem to be on the surface. So dig deep, push harder, push past that 40%, continue moving forward, and you can accomplish a lot more than you thought you could. And that's all I got for today, Dom. I think that about covers what we talked about.
That was beautiful and well done, Tom. So I appreciate you sharing that. All right, Dr. Tachi, Joyce, Jane, everybody, stop back next week. We appreciate you guys. We are out of here. I'm pushing the button. That's how we're doing it. 3, 2, 1. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.